I felt like my brain was full, all the time. Too many notifications, too much scrolling, my attention span? Shot. I'd pick up my phone to check the weather. 30 minutes later, I'm watching videos about something completely random. Sound familiar? I knew I needed a change, a real reset. Not just turning off notifications for an hour. I needed something drastic, something to shake me out of this digital haze that had become my normal. It was time to see if I could actually live without that little glowing rectangle dictating my days. It wasn't just about productivity though. It was about how I felt. I was more anxious, more distracted, less present in my own life. I'd be with friends and my phone would be on the table. My eyes would dart to it. Or I'd feel that phantom buzz in my pocket. It was like an addiction, and I didn't like that feeling of being controlled by a device. This challenge, the 7-day digital detox, felt like the right kind of difficult. No phone, no social media, a full 7 days. The idea was a bit scary, honestly, but also exciting. What would I discover? Before starting, I was a mix of nervous and hopeful. Could I actually do it? My work involves being online somewhat, but I knew I could schedule things, prepare people. The no excuses part of the challenge name really stuck with me. It was a commitment. I worried about missing something important, or just being incredibly bored. But the potential upside seemed huge, more focus, more peace, maybe even more creativity. I was tired of feeling like a slave to the algorithm, constantly chasing the next dopamine hit from a like or a new post. So the decision was made. I picked a week, told my close friends and family I'd be off the grid, set up an autoresponder for my emails just for emergencies. The goal wasn't to become a Luddite, it was to reclaim my time, to reclaim my attention, to see who I was without the constant digital chatter filling every spare moment. I wanted to see if I could just be with my own thoughts and maybe, just maybe, enjoy the silence, or at least the lack of digital noise. It was time to find out. The rules for this challenge were simple, but simple doesn't always mean easy. Rule number 1, no smartphone at all, for 7 straight days. This was the big one. My phone is my alarm clock, my map, my camera, my boredom killer, it's everything. So, this meant finding analog alternatives for a lot of daily tasks. It also meant no quick Google searches when a random question popped into my head. I'd have to write it down, or gasp, just let it go, imagine that. Rule number 2, no social media. This meant no Instagram, no Twitter or X, whatever we call it now. No Facebook, no TikTok. Nothing, even on a computer. If I needed my laptop for work, like writing scripts or editing, that was okay. But no social media websites. No YouTube rabbit holes unless it was for a specific, pre-planned work task. The temptation would be there. I knew it. My muscle memory would try to type those URLs. I had to be vigilant. This rule was about cutting off the endless scroll and comparison traps, what counted and what didn't. Well, my laptop was allowed for essential work tasks, things that directly related to my job and couldn't be postponed. But recreational browsing was out. No news websites just to kill time, no online shopping. If I needed to communicate for something truly urgent, I could use my laptop for email, but only for planned check-ins, not constant monitoring. Texting? Out, because that's on the phone. Calls? Also out, unless it was a true emergency and someone reached me via a pre-arranged alternative. The spirit of the challenge was clear disconnect from the constant digital stream. It wasn't about finding loopholes, it was about creating genuine space. I even decided against listening to podcasts on my computer, as that felt like replacing one stream of digital content with another. I wanted to experience what it felt like to have fewer inputs, to let my mind wander without being prodded by a new notification or the next episode in a playlist. This was about intentionality, making conscious choices instead of falling into old, easy habits. This was going to be tough. Day 1. The phone was off, tucked away in a drawer. It felt weird, really weird. The first thing I noticed was my hand. It kept reaching for my pocket, that familiar spot where my phone usually lived. It was an unconscious habit, like a phantom limb, but for technology. I'd be sitting, reading a book, and suddenly my hand would twitch. It was a strange sensation, realizing how ingrained that movement was. The house felt quieter too, almost too quiet. No random pings or buzzes, just silence. The morning routine was different. I used an old-school alarm clock, the kind that actually ticks. It felt a bit retro. I made breakfast without scrolling through news feeds or emails. I just made breakfast and ate it. Looking out the window, it was slower, more deliberate. The biggest challenge was the in-between moments, waiting for the kettle to boil, sitting on the couch after finishing a task. Normally I'd grab my phone. Now, I just sat there. It was a little uncomfortable. I wasn't sure what to do with myself. What went well? I actually read a lot. I picked up a book I'd been meaning to start for months. and I read for a solid hour, uninterrupted. That felt good, productive in a different way. I also went for a walk without music or a podcast, just me and my thoughts, and the sounds of the neighborhood. I noticed things I hadn't before. The way the light hit the trees, the different types of birds. It was surprisingly engaging. My mind felt a little clearer, less cluttered, even after just one day. But the struggle was real. The urge to check for messages was strong. What if someone needed me? What if something important happened? I had to keep reminding myself that I'd set up contingencies, that the world wouldn't end if I was offline for a week. The evenings were particularly hard. That's prime scrolling time. Instead, I organized my bookshelf. Not exactly thrilling, but it kept my hands busy. The phantom buzzes continued. My leg would vibrate, but there was nothing there. It was all in my head. Or was it? Day 2 rolled around and the phantom limb syndrome was still present. My thumb kept wanting to swipe up even when I was just holding a cup of coffee. It's funny how these little devices rewire our brains and our bodies. I started my day, again, with the analog alarm clock. I was actually getting used to its gentle ticking. I made a point to do some stretching, something I always said I'd do but never had time for. Turns out when you're not losing an hour to morning phone scrolling, you find time for other things. It's amazing. The boredom really started to set in on day 2. Those little pockets of empty time felt longer, more pronounced. I realized how much I relied on my phone to fill every micro moment. Waiting in line at the grocery store, yes, I still had to do essential errands just without my digital companion, felt like an eternity. I didn't have anything to look at, so I just looked around, observed people. It was a bit awkward at first. I felt exposed without my screen to hide behind, but it also made me more aware of my surroundings. By day 3, something started to shift. The constant urge to check my phone began to lessen, just a little. It wasn't gone, not by a long shot, but it wasn't as frantic. I found myself picking up that book again. I even dug out an old sketchbook and doodled a bit. I'm no artist, believe me, but it was something to do with my hands, something creative. I also spent more time just thinking, planning future projects, mulling over ideas. Without the constant interruption of notifications, my thoughts felt deeper, more connected. What went well on these days was the increased focus. When I sat down to write, I wrote. No distractions, no quick checks of email or social media. My work sessions became more productive, more intense. I also noticed I was sleeping better. I wasn't staring at a blue screen right before bed. Instead, I was reading a physical book. My mind felt calmer as I drifted off. The struggle was still there, especially in the evenings. But I started to find new analog ways to wind down. It felt like I was slowly, very slowly reclaiming my brain. Day 4 hit, and this was a tough one. The novelty of the detox had worn off a bit. The initial excitement was replaced by a kind of stubborn reality. This was my life for the week. No easy escape. Boredom became a very real presence. It wasn't just the little moments anymore, it was bigger chunks of time. I'd finish a task, and then what? My mind, so used to being constantly fed new information, felt restless. It was like an itch I couldn't quite scratch. This was the boredom barrier I had to push through. I decided to lean into the boredom. Instead of fighting it, I just let it be. I sat on my porch and just watched the world go by. It sounds simple, maybe even a bit cliché, but it was surprisingly difficult at first. My brain wanted to be something, but after a while it settled, and in that quiet, new ideas started to surface. Thoughts I hadn't had time or space for before. It was like the boredom created a vacuum, and creativity started to fill it. I found myself thinking about new video ideas, different ways to approach my work. Day 5 brought a surprising surge of energy. Maybe it was the improved sleep, or maybe my brain was finally adjusting to the lower level of stimulation. I felt more alert, more present. I had a long conversation with a friend in person. We met for coffee, and it was great. No phones on the table, just talking, making eye contact. It felt like conversations used to feel, more genuine, more connected. I realized how much the presence of a phone, even if it's face down, can subtly change the dynamic of an interaction. The biggest win during these middle days was the rediscovery of simple pleasures. Cooking a meal became an enjoyable process, not a chore to rush through. Reading a book was an escape. Even cleaning the house felt somewhat meditative. Without the option of digital distraction, I had to find engagement in the real world. And it was there, waiting for me. The struggle was still the lingering desire to just quickly check something. But the desire was weaker. I was learning to live with a quieter mind. It was a strange but increasingly welcome feeling. Day 6, the home stretch. I could almost taste the sweet relief of reconnection, or so I thought. A funny thing happened. Part of me wasn't actually looking forward to the end of the detox as much as I expected. I had found a new rhythm, a slower pace. My anxiety levels were noticeably lower. I felt calmer, more centered. The world hadn't imploded because I wasn't constantly checking my phone. Shocking, I know. My FOMO, fear of missing out, had significantly diminished. I was more focused on what I was doing, not what everyone else might be. On day 6 I spent a lot of time outdoors. I went for a long hike. No headphones. Just the sounds of nature. It was incredible. I felt more connected to my surroundings than I had in a long time. My senses felt sharper. I noticed the smell of the pine trees, the feel of the sun on my skin, the intricate patterns on a fallen leaf. These were things I often missed when I was plugged in, lost in my own digital world. This day felt like a celebration of being present, a reward for sticking with the challenge. Day 7, the final day. It felt like a victory lap. I woke up feeling refreshed. I had a clear plan for my day and it didn't involve my phone. I did some writing, I read, I even did some light gardening, things I often didn't have time for. The biggest surprise was how little I actually missed my phone for its core functions. Yes, the convenience is nice, but I had managed, I had found alternatives, the world still turned, my work still got done, my relationships were still intact. As the day drew to a close, I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was proud of myself for completing the challenge. No excuses, I did it. But I also felt a little apprehensive about re-entering the digital world. Would I immediately fall back into old habits? Would all this newfound peace and clarity just evaporate? I hope not. This week had shown me that a different way of living was possible, a more intentional, less reactive way. I wasn't eager to just dive back into the noise. I wanted to bring some of this analog calm with me. The biggest struggle, without a doubt, was the first 48 hours. That initial shock to the system. My brain was screaming for its usual fix of information, notifications, and endless scrolling. The phantom vibrations were relentless. My hand constantly twitched towards my empty pocket. It felt like a part of me was missing. I'd have a random thought, a question I wanted to Google, and the frustration of not being able to instantly gratify that curiosity was surprisingly intense. It showed me how dependent I'd become on immediate answers. Another major battle was the boredom, especially on days 3 and 4. Once the initial "I can do this" wore off, and before the real benefits kicked in, there was this uncomfortable void. I realized how much I used my phone not just for connection or information but as a crutch, a way to avoid being alone with my thoughts, a way to fill every single spare second. Facing that unstructured time, that mental quietness was tough. I had to consciously find other things to do or just learn to sit with the stillness, which is a skill in itself. Then there were the social moments, or rather the perceived lack of them. Even though I knew logically that nothing urgent was likely happening, the feeling of being disconnected from friends and the wider world was a struggle. What were people talking about? What memes was I missing? It sounds trivial, but these platforms create a sense of shared experience, and being outside of that loop felt isolating at times. I had to remind myself that real connections happen in person, or through more intentional communication, not just through likes and fleeting comments. Handling these tough moments involved a few strategies. One was distraction, but analog distraction. Reading a book, going for a walk, sketching, cleaning, anything to keep my mind and hands occupied. Another was mindfulness, acknowledging the urge to check my phone, observing it without judgment, and then letting it pass, like a cloud moving through the sky. And finally, reminding myself of my why I started this challenge in the first place, to regain focus, reduce anxiety, and be more present. Keeping that goal in mind helped me resist the siren song of the screen. So what did I actually learn from this week of digital silence? The biggest takeaway was realizing just how much my phone and social media were fragmenting my attention, constantly. I thought I was good at multitasking. Turns out I was just good at switching tasks rapidly and poorly. Without the constant interruptions, my ability to focus on a single task for an extended period improved dramatically. It was like my brain could finally breathe and stretch. The depth of thought I could achieve was so much greater. Another key lesson was about my relationship with boredom. I used to see boredom as a negative thing, something to be avoided at all costs. But this detox taught me that boredom is actually a gateway. It's the space where creativity can spark, where new ideas can bubble up. When I stopped trying to fill every empty moment with digital noise, my mind started to wander in productive ways. I had more original thoughts. I felt more inspired. Boredom, it turns out, isn't the enemy. It's an opportunity for your brain to do its own thing. At the end of the 7 days, I felt significantly calmer. My baseline anxiety level had dropped, I was sleeping better, I felt more present in my daily life. Little things like the taste of my coffee or the sound of birds outside seemed more vibrant. It was like a layer of digital static had been removed from my perception of the world. This clarity was perhaps the most surprising and welcome outcome. I hadn't realized how much the constant digital stimulation was subtly stressing me out until it was gone. My mindset around technology definitely shifted. I no longer see it as an all-or-nothing thing, but I am much more aware of its addictive potential and its impact on my well-being. I started to see my phone more as a tool, rather than a default companion. A tool to be used intentionally, for specific purposes, rather than a pacifier for every moment of unease or boredom. The detox helped me reset my habits, and I was determined to carry some of these lessons forward into my normal life. It wasn't about rejecting technology, but about redefining my relationship with it. My final thoughts. If you're thinking about trying a digital detox, my short answer is yes, absolutely, do it. It might sound daunting. It might even sound impossible depending on your current habits. But the potential benefits are huge. It's like hitting a reset button for your brain. You get a chance to see how much technology is really influencing your thoughts, your mood, and your attention. It's an experiment in self-awareness, and you might be surprised by what you discover about yourself and your habits. It's a challenge for sure, but a worthwhile one. My advice would be to prepare. Don't just jump in cold turkey without a plan. Let people know you'll be offline, especially if they rely on you for quick responses. Set up an autoresponder for your email. Think about what you'll do with your time instead. Have some books ready, plan some activities, maybe line up some in-person catch-ups with friends. Having alternatives will make it easier to resist the urge to go back online. And be kind to yourself. It's not easy. There will be moments when you want to give up. Would I do it again? Definitely. Maybe not every month. But perhaps once or twice a year, as a way to check in with myself. To make sure I'm still in control of my technology use, and not the other way around. I think it's a valuable practice for anyone who feels overwhelmed by the digital world. It helps you reevaluate what's truly important and how you want to spend your precious time and attention. It has certainly changed how I approach my phone and social media usage now. Ultimately, a digital detox isn't about demonizing technology. Technology is amazing. It connects us, it informs us, it entertains us, but it's about finding a balance. It's about using these powerful tools intentionally, rather than letting them use us. If you feel like you're drowning in notifications, or your attention span is shot, or you just want to feel more present in your own life, give it a try. 7 days, no phone, no socials, no excuses. You might just find a clearer, calmer, more focused version of yourself on the other side. And that's a pretty great reward.